Sigh, 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 sigh. Do you ever have one of those times when you're just feeling low because it seems like you must have failed so badly? You look at yourself in the mirror and you go, How can I have failed to this extent? I just don't understand where I went wrong. So, anyways, I had a discussion. No, I didn't have a discussion. I had communication from one of my viewers over something. And it was weird. And it was weird. And basically, the viewer goes into this whole monologue. And in this monologue, basically, they go on to say, how are we expected to trust you? As your students, how are we expected to trust you? And then they go on to say that they only want to deal with people that care about them. And I just looked at it. And I just like, that was my test. That was my test, not their test. That was my final exam that I failed miserably. F, loser, you're fired. That's how badly I failed that test. Because I looked at this and went, oh my God, this student thinks that they should trust me. This student thinks I give a shit that they survive. What have I done wrong? So, anyways, I do find this interesting with the younger folk mentality. Again, I talk about the mentalities of generations, and it permeates society. There was a millennial thing about passion, right? Millennials got sold a line about passion, and then everybody else bought into it too. Right. I find this with like the Gen Zers, the Gen Alphas, right? This whole idea that you need to deal with people that care about you. Like, dude, fuck. If you can find that, God bless. Right? I'm not right. If you can find that spaghetti monster, bless. But that's not what I'm here for. And I think that's what people don't understand. I'm here on the aggregate to make a world a better place. And if you can use what I create and what I offer to push your ball forward, I am all for that. But I want you to understand something. Here at Silicon Dojo, we only care about the balls. We move balls forward. That is it. If you get run over by a bus, I'm going to play with somebody else's balls. It's not about you. Anyways, I just find this to be an interesting thing. You see with the young people nowadays, especially in my weird ass position, like being like a senior level, dealing with the noobs. Dealing with the noobs. It can be so frustrating. Because it's just like, yeah, Bucko, that's not how the world works. That's just not how the world works. So I want you to understand, if you're watching me in any fashion, right, consuming my content in any fashion, don't trust me. Don't trust anybody, including me, right? Distrust, verify, stay suspicious. Listen to what I say. Take that information with the knowledge that you already have. Go out into the world to kind of poke into areas where you may not have a good expertise, and then decide how my viewpoints or how my information, comports with all of this other stuff. And if you find in general that my information, what I provide you, comports well, then you can have a little bit more trust over what I say. If the information that I provide does not comport well, then don't trust me at all, because obviously I'm an idiot. But that's about you. That's about you. And as far as caring about any of you, I do find this to be a funny thing too. Again, in the weird social media world that we have. So again, on my main YouTube channel, 1.1 million subscribers. On this YouTube channel, 150,000 subscribers, and even Silicon Dojo. So silicondojo.com at this point in time has existed for about a month and a half, and we're at like 637 subscribers as of this morning. So north of 600 subscribers in about a month and a half. So we're gaining, whatever. Again, it's a vanity metric. To be clear, I'm not lying here. It's a vanity metric, but it's something that you can go off of. So we're increasing by 100 plus members on Silicon Dojo per month or per week. And so the factual matter is, I can't care about 1.1 million people. I can't care about 150,000 people. And honestly, once you get above 100 people, I can't really care that much about 637 people either, right? I am here to provide information to empower you to do better. If that is good enough, take the information and make your life better. If it's not good enough, God bless. There's a big world out there. You can find somebody else to learn from. But anyways, I figured I'd probably bring that up. Because there's that funny thing. I did this whole fucking book. Again, it's like I offer my services. Again, I do the half an hour coaching sessions. I do the Zoom session. Today we're gonna do a Zoom session for a couple hours. I create these self-study programs. I do all of this. I do all of this stuff. And then some of these viewers, I get these books back. You get these books back. What you have to understand, Eli. Oh, fuck me. It's okay. It's okay. You can write a sentence. You can put a complaint in a tweet length. Right? Hey, Eli, as one of your students, I did not fully appreciate X, Y, or Z. I thought I would bring this to your attention. Wow, thank you. That has now been brought to my attention. I will consider that. No. You gotta write me this book. You gotta write me this book about trust and caring. Oh my God, brought in my military service. As an ex-military. Oh, fuck you. Do not bring up my military service, you worthless piece of shit. That was unkind. But also bringing up my military service was a bit of a bridge too far. Just don't. Guys. Just don't. So anyways, how are y'all doing? It's another day. It is another day. It is cold as hell here in Asheville, North Kakalaki. Woke up in the morning. It was about 11 degrees. Apparently, it felt like -4 degrees. And so I'm very happy. Gonna be in Miami. Gonna be counting down the hours till Miami. People are like, Eli, are you really sure you're thinking about moving to Miami? Yeah, it's cold there right now. And their cold is 60 degrees. Our cold is -4 degrees. I like cold being 60. Again, it's one of those funny things, like the heat. Eli, what about the heat of Miami? And I thought about this a lot. I don't really like heat a lot. But here's the thing. On a hot day, you can go out in the morning and walk the Chihuahua. You can go out at night and walk the Chihuahua. And in the middle of the day, probably not walk the Chihuahua, but you can go to the cafe, you can go to the grocery store. It doesn't feel too bad, right? Anyways, when it's, sub 32. And that's like the high or whatever the day. You're not going to walk the Chihuahua in the morning. You're not going to walk the Chihuahua in the evening. Probably not going to walk the Chihuahua in the middle of the day. So yeah, heat is actually easier to deal with, I would argue, than cold. And it might also be that I'm getting older. I'll say this as a Gen Xer. I will say something no fucking boomer will ever admit to. I'm getting older. Let me tell you, 48 is not the new 21. 48 might be the new 46. I tell you, being 48 in 2025, man, I feel so young. I feel like I'm not a day over 46. But anyways, it is an interesting thing to be thinking about for all the males out there, all those alpha males that watch me. I know how many alpha males watch me. As you get older, you feel colder. You really do feel colder. This isn't a lie. My wife is even out because I've been with my wife for like 20 years, right? I was in my 20s when we got together. And she's like, yeah, you deal with the cold worse than you used to. And I'm like, yes, because I'm getting older. Not my wife. My wife is definitely not getting older. I'm getting older. So anyways, the heat will be nice. Be there for a month. So anyways, I'll put a little post out about that. So if you go to meetups, if you go to events in Miami, You may see me. You may see this bald. You may see this bald head there. Just so you know what's going on with Silicon Dojo. Again, I am working on the Linux server administration class. That's coming up. SiliconDojo.com. So we have the tech question and answer thing today. So I'm going to keep doing this even when I'm in Miami. It will be less quality. Well, it'll be less video quality, I suppose, but I'm going to keep doing it. Anyways, we have this at 2 o'clock today. You can RSVP at SiliconDojo.com. We have old classes and tech question and answer things there. We have our self-study program, Intro to Python, 372 students. Bottle Web App, 43 students. Introduction to SQL, 22 students, going up by the day. And we have office hours. And these things are damn booked up for like a month or so. But anyways, I do 30 minutes Monday, 1 through 5. You can sign up for it, but I will tell you it is booked up for a while. And now to the insanity. And when the pendulum swings, sometimes that motherfucker gets spiked. So what I'm going to be talking about today, again, is the argument, are the events that I foreshadowed many years ago, many years ago. And again, when I foreshadow events, I think of the great Harry Seldon, right? Foundation, the original Foundation, before Apple got its grubby little hands on it and completely destroyed it. I do want to say, like, go read the Foundation series. Isaac Asimov's Foundation series. Absolutely fabulous, one of the best piece of science fiction to ever be created. Not just written, created. But one of the curious things about the Foundation series is that Harry Seldon states categorically the individual decisions of individual people do not fucking matter. It is how societies operate, essentially at scale, is what moves the pendulum. And if you've seen the god-awful Apple Foundation TV series, you will know why I'm so fucking irritated with the modern era. Because they took this fabulous piece of science fiction and they literally turned it on its head. Again, the curious thing about Harry Seldon in the Foundation series is he was only like in 1 or 2 books. There are many books in the series. It's been a long time since I read it, but he was only actually in 1 or 2 books. And then what he created as a character then went out for generations, 1,000 years or whatever, right? And again, his point, like the fucking point of the books, is that individual decisions are not that significant. It's the decisions of societies. Again, agree with it or disagree with it. You can disagree with it. But that's what the books were about. And then we get the TV series. We get the TV series from Apple, where Harry Seldon somehow is being dragged along through this entire mess of a series. And basically, it all gets turned into one person can change the course of the universe. And those 1 or 2 people happen to be black ladies. Ooh, yeah, that's just on the nose for the modern era. And it's like, so you take this absolutely classic piece of science fiction that literally states individuals don't really matter in the course of history, and somehow you turn it on its head to the 2 black women are completely pivotal to the entire galaxy. He was like, dude, if you wanted to create a series about black women controlling the universe, fine. I'm not anti that. I'm actually not anti that. But that's not the Foundation series. Anyways. Getting off on a rant. Rars, as we say down here. Getting off on a rars. So anyways, what I talk about with the whole, psychohistory, I think it's called Psychohistory and Foundation, is the idea of if you look at how history goes, if you look at how humanity goes, you can kind of plot where the future is going to go, because that's just how the fuck it always goes, right? And one of the arguments that I've made ever since George Floyd and BLM and people, white girls slapping BLM stickers on their cars and the whole 9 yards, is my argument has always been is if you did not know African Americans had a problem in our society in 2019, I just don't buy you actually care in 2021, right? it's not exactly like a hidden issue in our society. It's not exactly like it's there for you to see. And so again, one of my things is I really did feel like this was a fad. Again, it was a disgusting, just vulgar fad about people quote unquote being in privileged positions, essentially slumming it for a few years to seem cool. And now that that fad is over, they're just walking away from these people that they said that they were arm in arm with, right? And it's just like that's just vulgar. Again, as I've said, I believe in BLSM. BLM is garbage. BLM is garbage. Black Lives Matter. Who the hell cares? BLSM. BLSM. Die hard believer in BLSM. What's BLSM? Black lives should matter. In my heart of hearts, I believe Black lives should matter. They don't. They don't. They should. They don't. But anyways, and one of my arguments with all this is all these companies came out with these quote unquote DEI initiatives and the whole nine yards. And I've been arguing that they've been garbage. Basically, they've been slapping BLM bumper stickers on their corporate headquarters without doing any fundamental changes to the company. And then, as I've argued for a long time, at the end of the day, it's going to turn into a crap show, right? Good systems default to good outcomes. Bad systems default to bad outcomes, and no systems default to chaos. So we had somewhere between a bad system and a no system, and now it's absolutely getting shredded because they never did the hard work. It's not even hard work, man. They never just sat down with a cup of coffee and listened to somebody that didn't fucking look like them. You know what would be nice in the corporate DEI departments of the United States? If they actually had cups of coffee or beer. You can have beer, just be careful, do it in a public environment, with people that are not like them. And then just ask some questions that they're curious about and then listen to the response. Again, as I say, the KKK will be very proud of me. Very proud of me. I almost killed a black guy in Baltimore with a chicken wing once. That's a true story. That's a true story. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning. We were sitting there at a Royal Farms. We had just been doing this manual labor job that, fuck me. That I wound up getting into after I had military experience, a college degree, MCSC, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I was sitting there doing manual labor because that's how careers go, boys and girls. Anyway, so it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm tired. We're sitting there, we're eating this Royals Farm chicken, literally in the middle of Baltimore City. And I look at my friend. I look at my black friend, who was about 42 years old at the time. And as we're sitting there eating, it's like, hey, I got a question for you. And again, this was about like 2001 or something. He's like, oh, yeah, what's that, Eli? It's like, yeah, so why don't you go back to Africa? And that was the day I almost killed a black guy with a chicken wing. He choked a little bit. He choked on that chicken wing. He was like, what the fuck? And I was like, well, again, to be clear, this was early 2000s. Normal stuff is going on in our society. And I was like, well, we're not going to get to equality with our generation. And we're not going to get to equality with our kids' generation. And we're probably not going to get to equality with our grandkids' generation, at the pace we're going. Great grandkids, maybe we got great grandkids going. So I was like, yeah. So, when you set all that up, why don't you just go back to Africa? Eli, you don't ask a black man why they don't go back to Africa. And at that point, I looked at him, again, in the middle of the inner city, eating fried chicken. I go, yeah, I get it. I just irritated you a little bit. But question's been asked. Answer. And I got a very interesting response to the entire question. Again, a very interesting and thoughtful, probably about an hour response on why the fuck he wasn't going back to Africa. But it was interesting. I was curious. I was curious about on the white side, where are the white issues? Also curious on where the black issues are. I just sat there and actually listened. And again, that's one of the conversations, one of the listening sessions that I have that actually, has an impact over the decisions that I make today. And again, imagine if I'm willing to ask that. Whew. Imagine the other questions I ask all through my life, all through my life. Because again, it would be wise. It would be wise of us to figure out how to do better. And as a society, when we're talking about how to do better, one question is how I can do better. Another question is how, society and systems and structures can do better. And the other side, again, if you're talking about BLM and things, is how Black people can do better. How can we come together to create a better society for all of us? Because I fail to fucking see how Baltimore City helps anybody, right? Because again, you look at some place like Baltimore City, it's like, poor Black people. But it's also not good for the white people either. It's not good for any of us, right? It's a fucking shithole. It's a rat-infested shithole. No, it has rats. It has rats. Anyways, and so it's a disaster for the people that live there because it's just an economic crap hole. It's a disaster for people make money because more and more tax money goes into this economic disaster, and it's bad for society at large because this was a large city and still has the infrastructure to be a large city that is essentially going there to rot. Think about how many housing units Baltimore City has that people refuse to live in. Again, we have a housing crisis. We have a housing crisis. And yet, so many housing units in inner cities in the United States are going vacant because people refuse to live there. For real reasons. For real reasons. Again, many conversations. So anyways, and so one of the big things, and I see with a lot of these DEI programs or whatever, is they're not sitting down and having honest conversations and figuring out, again, what can we do? Again, not on the grand scale, just in the day-to-day lives. What can we do? How can we make things more inclusive? Again, I talked about that with the abject racism of the Baltimore tech Facebook group, right? So back in the day, I put out a post. I was doing a blog post, and I was writing about, again, why there's not more Black folks that were represented in the tech scene when you do tech events, and in the small business scene when you do entrepreneurial events. So if you're trying to bring up Baltimore City, that's the idea with these people. That's what they state their idea is. And 64.5% of the city is African American. Then why are so few African Americans there? And again, it was just, do we need to show them that the door actually exists? A whole bunch of stuff we've talked about before. And again, the laugh line that one of these racists piece of shit said in the Baltimore Tech Facebook group that he was very fucking proud of. Well, maybe at events we should bring malt liquor and fried chicken. Literally said this fucking publicly. It's about 10 years ago. And one, me as an Aspie, I'm like, I don't know, is that what they want? And two, I was like, fuck you, you racist piece of shit. But I want you to think about this with food. Isn't that a laugh line? Well, maybe we should offer malt liquor and fried chicken. But think about what that really states. Again, when you go to tech events, what are they going to be? They're going to be microbrews and there's going to be pizza. And here's an interesting question, right? Again, as an Aspie, one of the things I don't do very well is something called nonverbal communication. Apparently, a tremendous amount of communication in humans is nonverbal. And so one of the things with nonverbal communication is how you welcome people, how you show them that they are welcome. So the things like food that you put on the table, that is an effort to show certain types of people are welcome. Look, we have pizza and cool beer, right? And so again, if you're getting young, techie type people, again, let me tell you, free pizza was a lot cooler 10 years ago. I'm not anti-pizza. Fucking pizza's getting a little much, right? But anyways, right? Hey, we're going to put out pizza. See, this is cool. This is like taking college to the next level. But again, if you have a group of people that didn't go to college, or that were intimidated by college, or maybe didn't have the best experience in college, or don't really understand the whole pizza and microbrew thing, like having that is a form of communication to a group of people that may not feel as welcoming to. Again, I think about that with Asheville. All the events are held at breweries. Well, here's the thing. Asheville's in the South. Don't tell the progressives this. Asheville's in the South and has had god awful racial policies. Had it for so long. Just wiping out African American communities, right? And so here's the thing. If you're doing events and you're trying to be welcoming to the community and you put it at a brewery, if I was a young black guy, would I want to be around a lot of drunk white guys at a brewery? Would that make me feel welcome and comfortable? There's a good question, possibility, maybe not. And so that's one of the things. You sit there. And I've had this conversation with some African Americans. And again, they are put off by it. Being around a bunch of young or being around a bunch of white guys drinking beer at a brewery isn't necessarily the same experience for them, right? And so these are the things that we should be thinking about when we think about diversity and we think about equity and we think about inclusion. How do we change our food selections? How do we look at, not even change our food selections, how do we look at our food selections? How do we look at our event venues? Again, having guys, an open bar for guys to drink, and you talk with women who are 51% of the population, how comfortable are they necessarily in these particular situations? Right? Looking at this kind of stuff and going, okay, how can we modify our systems in appropriate ways to deal with these kind of issues? May disparage or disenfranchise certain groups. How can we enfranchise or energize certain groups? But it doesn't have to be this insane fucking indoctrination program. Because that's the thing. If you're a racist, if you're a sexist, right? If you're a prejudicial piece of shit, sitting down and talking with people that you want to support and trying to figure out how to soften the edges of the system is probably not something you're going to do. You're just going to hire a bunch of people to go deal with it. And then you're going to get indoctrination programs and all kinds of stupidity that aren't going to make anybody happy. And then at the end of it, right, when the pendulum of society gets spiked into your fucking face, are you going to have anybody to blame other than the racist piece of crap looking back at you in the mirror? Right? Again, I think about this. Again, with Silicon Dojo, the systems that I've been creating for years. Right? When you sign up for office hours, you'll notice when you sign up for office hours, all it asks, what the hell is your name? It's some basic information. What the hell do you want? That's it. Why? Because when you create a system of authority, people in positions of authority will make bad calls. Maybe they'll make bad calls because they're racist. Maybe they'll make bad calls because they're tired. Maybe they'll make bad calls because they just made a bad call. Right? But the more people you put in power, the more they will use that power inappropriately. And so that's one of the reasons with Silicon Dojo, everything that I try to create as much as possible, there is no system of power, right? When I go to my Monday morning sessions, do you know what I see? I literally, and I would show you, but it has some, don't want to show people's information. Literally, when I sit down on Monday morning, all I see is I see a name, I see an email address, that's why I'm not showing it to you, and I see this is why I want to talk to you. And then I get onto Zoom, and then I do a little prayer to the spaghetti monster to say, please don't make this be god awful. And then I admit them into the Zoom room. Hey, so let's dive in. What is your problem? Why have you contacted me today? That is a system. But anyways, don't tell that to the progressives. Don't tell that to the progressives. Because then the progressives might have to think about what they're doing. So anyways, why I find all this interesting, a long diatribe. Right, Florida files suit against Target, claiming DEI initiatives misled investors. And so we're going to start seeing more and more of this with the Trump administration. Again, that's one of the things, whether it's Steve Jobs or whether it's Elon Musk or whether it's Trump, once they do things, other people jump on board, right? Ooh, now I'm allowed to do it too. And so basically, we're going to start seeing more and more attacks against DEI initiatives, whether it's in government or organizations, institutions, businesses, or whatever else, because they have been implemented in such a god awful, ham handed, racist, sexist, just evil way that they are incredibly easy targets to go after. Again, as I say, if the head Pumbaa of the KKK, if Trump or Elon Musk walked through that door right now and said, Eli, your DEI initiatives are unacceptable, you must stop. What I want you to think about is, how would I stop? I would have to create systems. I would literally have to spend resources to create systems in order to disenfranchise people. Think about that compared to Target and all these other companies where they spend a lot of money to create systems, and those systems can be ripped away. Tallahassee, Florida's new attorney general filed a federal court lawsuit against Target on Thursday, claiming the discount store chain, quote, misled investors by promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives that prompted a backlash and hurt sales, ultimately costing shareholders. Right? So with Target, they sort of celebrated. It's not even Gay Pride anymore. The whole LGBTQ thing. One of their things was like hide the nutsack. So they had bikinis. I don't know how this works. I'm not even being mean here. I just don't understand how this works. Anyway, so they had bikinis, and so some of the bikinis had penis holders, hides your penis tuck holders. I don't know. And people took offense to this. I don't know. It's a clothing store. It's a clothing store. They had clothing for people who wanted this particular type of clothing, and all hell broke loose. All right. Again, it's kind of like the whole Bud Light thing. Dylan Mulvaney, or whatever the hell his name is, they sent him a 6-pack of beer and asked him to be an ambassador. And then now it's like over a year later, 2 years, whatever it's been, and Bud Light sales are still down 25%. Again, I do not understand why Bud Light wanted, somebody in girl face to advertise their product. Seems weird. How do we go from dilly dilly to girl face? I don't get it. But they did, and wow, that really damaged the brand. Right? And so the argument here is that with Target trying to do these DEI initiatives, that's hurt shareholder value. And again, it is interesting to be thinking about this from the American system. One of the very fucked up things about the American system, especially as far as corporations are concerned, is corporations' primary duty is to return shareholder value. Again, it's definitely not a fucking good system, but it is the system that we have. It's one of the reasons why a lot of people get confused about why corporations do what corporations do. And one of the reasons a lot of these, Republicans or whatever are just wrong about government regulation is the reason we need government regulation is because by law, corporations are mandated to bring back shareholder value. So if they can bring back shareholder value by hook or by crook or by destroying the entire fucking society, right? Mark Zuckerberg going in and mining the foundations of our very society just so he can get a couple of nuggets of gold to make himself and his shareholders wealthy, although it is literally fucking destroying our society, by law, that's actually what he's supposed to do. And again, that's going to be the interesting thing with these DEI initiatives. It is highly questionable what it's actually done for the bottom line, and it is arguable in many ways that it has damaged the bottom line for these corporations. Again, there's a line of horse crap out there that diversity is better for corporations. And again, in some ways it can be, but in a lot of ways it's not. Again, one of the things to be thinking about, again, I got my degree in criminal justice. Had to do lots of research and lots of studying years and years and years ago. And I'm gonna tell you something you're not supposed to say. You know the most peaceful societies? You know the societies that hum along pretty well? Yeah, they're the ones that are the most homogenous. Goes back to that whole culture thing. When everybody has basically the same view viewpoint on the world, whether it's things like punctuality, whether it's things like honesty, whether you should raise your voice or stay quiet, a lot of those different things, right? The more people agree with those fundamental tenets of how you're supposed to interact, the easier it is for organizations and societies to just move along, right? This whole idea that diversity, by hook or by crook, is the best thing for organizations or corporations, is actually just a load of bunk. Just really like it's. I mean, this scientific, like lots of research. Like I'm not gonna pull out the studies because so many studies, like so many fucking studies. So, anyways, again, I'm for diversity. I think it's good in some places. It's good in some ways. Again, thinking about like your marketing department, right? How do you get into new markets, right? I am not the best person to ask about how to sell to African Americans. Again, I remember that when I had my store, last time I had my store. Anyways, we were doing television ads. And so basically I told the person I was buying the television ads from, I was like, yeah, I want to hit the business community and I want the black community. Business community has money, black community is 65% of the population. And so they're like, okay, well, CNBC, obviously. Cool, doing CNBC. And they're like, yeah, and VH1. And I was like, what? And so this was 2012, I guess. And I was like, what do you mean VH1? I looked at her. I was like, wow. I guess I just do not know the modern hip hop community. I mean, they're rocking down to Amy Grant. I just can't see the brothers. I just can't see the brothers like in the inner city, like just rocking to like Amy Grant and Gloria Stefan. Again, I guess I'm a racist. I just didn't get it. And my TV rep or whatever, she looked at me and was like, wow, you have not seen VH1 in a while, have you? I was like, no, I haven't seen VH1 since the 90s. She was like, yeah, VH1 has changed. VH1 is not Amy Grant and Gloria Estefan anymore. Right? So that's the thing. Like in your marketing department, it makes sense. Diversity, the whole 9 yards. Maybe in the HR department, makes sense in certain places. But in other places, right, you got to be careful. Not about color, right? But like, are people thinking basically the same way? That kind of thing. Things to consider. And so that's one of the big issues is the DEI folks basically have been pushing a truthism. It's truthiness, as Colbert used to say. And basically what truthiness is it's things that sound like they should be true, but just aren't. And so the whole DEI thing and social justice warriors have been pushing truthiness for about the past 5 years. And the problem is it's just not it. It's just not it. Again, if you do it wisely, you target your marketing department, you target your HR department, you target specific things. So you have empowerment programs, educational programs, all of that kind of stuff, right? You can definitely matters. But again, if you're just ham-handed about it, yeah, there's no reason to believe that these programs are better. And so, again, with this Attorney General, and we're going to start to see with more of these lawsuits, is that there are going to be more attacks against these corporations and organizations for these programs, because at the end of the day, they are legally required to bring back shareholder value. And they've been on some fucking, whatever for the past couple of years, hyper-focused on things that aren't necessarily shareholder value. Before it scaled back its DEI efforts last month, Target was long considered a corporate advocate for the rights of Black and LGBTQ plus people. The retailer's decision in 2023 to roll out LGBTQ plus merchandise in honor of Pride Month outraged some shoppers and sparked confrontations in some stores. In the lawsuit filed in Fort Myers, Florida, Attorney General James Utmeyer argued that Target violated the Securities Exchange Act by failing to disclose, quote, the known risks of its DEI and Pride Month initiatives. And again, those would be known risks. Whether or not they declared it, I don't know. I haven't read their SEC filings, but it's valid. It might be a little disingenuous in some ways, but that is a valid argument. Just like you should put in the risks to your corporation due to climate change. Anyways, quote, corporations that push radical leftist ideology at the expense of financial returns jeopardize the retirement security of Florida's first responders and teachers. He said in a statement, my office will stridently pursue corporate reform so that companies get back to the business of doing business, not offensive political theater. And again, if you get rid of the radical leftist ideology, whatever, again, do remember our retirement funds are all caught up in our stock market, which is also a bad thing. Which is also a bad thing. Your again, your grandma and grandpa and my friends that are slightly older than me. Anyways, depend on the stock market doing well, depend on the stocks doing well, literally so they can pay their mortgages. Again, one of the things that gets left out of this whole equation. If a stock does poorly because of whatever, that hurts normal people, including teachers, firefighters, whoever else. So again, it is also a valid line of attack. Let's see here. Utmeyer, who was appointed as Attorney General by Republican Governor Ron DeSantis this week, has pledged to use the state's legal muster to, quote, champion an America First agenda and challenge what he called the left. Target announced in late January that it planned to discontinue a program aimed at better serving Black employees, Black shoppers, and Black-owned businesses. The Minneapolis-based retailer ushered in a series of DEI initiatives following the police killing of George Floyd in 2020. They followed that fad very nicely for a couple of years, and now they're ditching it. Since then, diversity, equity, and inclusion policies have come under attack from conservative activists and the White House. Walmart and a number of other prominent American brands have also scrapped or reduced their DEI commitments. Earlier this month, Missouri's Attorney General sued Starbucks over its diversity policies, claiming that coffee chain engaged in systematic racial, sexual, and sexual orientation discrimination. The Seattle-based company has called the claims inaccurate. So, there we go. We now have Republican attorney generals going after these corporations for their DEI initiatives because they say it destroys stockholder value. The reality is it probably doesn't do great things for stockholder value. The reality is these corporations did incredibly ham-handed systems for trying to implement this horse crap. And so basically what we're going to see is this DEI thing wiped away just like the pet rock or Beanie Babies or any of the other stuff. Remember when Beanie Babies were popular? Oh my God. Or Furbies. Dear Black people, you're the Furby of America. What? How do you mean Black people are the Furby of America? Well, incredibly popular for a short period of time. Everybody really cared about Furbies all the way up until they stopped caring about Furbies. Dear Black America. You're the modern Furby. That is so fucked up. Again, my arguments for all of this stuff is we need to be thinking about how we create our systems. We need to be sitting down and listening to all the parties that are relevant and asking ourselves, what can we do? What reasonable actions can we do to try to make things a little bit better for others so that they can move their ball forward? Again, I talk about this with the tech industry. How many alcoholics are there in the world? How many people out there have relations that were god-awfully alcoholic? Right? I've talked about this with my mother. Right? My mother was a horrible, god-awful alcoholic. Right? When I was 8 years old, I asked her if she was an alcoholic because I'd heard this word and all I knew that it had to do with something about people drinking alcohol. Kind of like, oh, are you a wine snob? And I was 8 years old. It was like, oh, are you a wine snob? Say, hey, Mom, are you an alcoholic? And then she lost her fucking mind. I can't believe you called me an alcoholic. Where did you hear? Anyways, at which point I realized, okay, I still don't know what the word alcoholic means, but obviously she is one. Again, went through the whole disastrous process of alcoholism. Had tried to do the whole intervention thing, wound up having to disown her at a certain point in time. And then finally, she died literally in her own crap. Literally in her own crap. I literally had to mop my mother's shit off her bedroom floor. Oh, that is one story from my life. That is one story from my life. But here's the thing. Again, I'm pretty fine with it. She was a psycho host beast. She was a psycho host beast. But I understand why a lot of people have real issues with alcohol. And so that's when I say with things like tech events and all that kind of stuff. When these tech bros who still think this is like the 8th year of college or some such crap, keep hosting events where there's just a metric crap ton of alcohol and literally no water. I mean, at least here in Nashville, you get water. There's always some place you can get some water. I would go to tech events in like Baltimore and Washington, D.C. or Seattle. So I've been to major cities doing these tech events. And I just get there, be late in the day. Again, you've been working for like 12 hours. Maybe you didn't have food. You went there. And you just don't want to drink. You just don't want to, I don't want to have alcohol because I am actually dehydrated and I actually need some food to drink. And that is not the time to drink alcohol. And so I'll go to these tech events and I'll just be like, hey, can I have a bottle of water? Like they have good scotch and they have good beer and they have good wine. I'm like, great, cool. Bottle of water. Oh no, we don't got no water. What do you mean you don't even have water? And so can you see how those kind of events can be imposing to people that aren't exactly like you? And that's what I'm saying is how can we create situations and events to make people feel comfortable? Again, as many people as possible. And maybe you're not going to feel comfortable with this. Maybe this event can't make everybody comfortable. But then you kind of space out the events. Okay, this event is going to be at a brewery. And it is as it's going to attract people who like beer. It's going to attract people who don't really care about beer. It might put off the alcoholics. But our next event is going to be at a coffee place. And so that event, again, that'll bring the people that, don't care about alcohol, that maybe they like coffee, and the diehard alcoholics may not come to that event. Right? That's the kind of thing you can do. How do you balance? How do you balance to the best degree possible? Again, sitting down, listening to people, that type of thing. But anyways, that's what I posit. That's what I argue for. And again, and if you take a look at the people that I support, again, a lot of them look like me. I don't talk about the people that look like me because they fucking look like me. Oh my God, Eli, do you mean you help white people? Eli helps white guys. I help white guys. I just don't talk about it because who the fuck cares? Again, to be clear, nobody gives a shit about white guys. White guys, was it male, pale, and stale, as I've been informed. Fuck. Did you fuckers really think that was a good motto? You had to be so far up your own asses to think that was a good idea. Anyways, don't talk about them a lot. But they're there too. And again, the point is, you sit down and you build the systems to support people. Again, like I say, if you're a Target or whatever, we are going to start hosting educational, management education programs that any of our employees are allowed to come to. So whether you're a fucking janitor or whether you're the assistant manager of the store, we are going to have these management training programs. Everybody who can, again, it's got scheduling purposes, things like that. It's going to be open to everybody so that everybody can be empowered. Because you might find that fucking janitor is going to work a hell of a lot harder to become a manager than the assistant manager is going to. All right? And that's how you can do things like diversity initiatives without whatever the fuck we've had for the past 4 years. And so anyways, that's why the social justice warriors are about to get the pendulum fucking spiked into their particular ball sacks. Oh, so anyways, what do you think about this? What do you think about the rise of the DEI horse crap? What do you think about the fall of the DEI horse crap? And do you see a better path forward? Do you see companies actually and organizations actually caring about this kind of stuff and trying to figure out a better way? Can we raise all boats without trying to sink other people's boats? Again, there's that weird thing in our society. It seems like in order to make my boat go higher, I'm told I have to make your boat sink. Is there a way we can just make the boats rise? Again, that's what I work for. That's what I work towards. And that's why today there will be a Zoom, there will be a live question and answer Zoom session. You show up and I answer your tech questions. I answer your tech questions. That's why on Mondays, I do the one-on-ones with 5 or however many people show up that particular day, the individual sessions. All right, that's why I create the self-study programs. You know what you need to do to take a self-study program? You need to click Take Self-Study Program. That's why I build the systems. You know, the final thing is I think about that. And again, with all these DEI things, and again, this is where I come back to with everything that I'm trying to create here with Dojo. So again, getting my criminal justice degree. I was in one of my, policing classes years ago. And again, it was in the 90s. I got my college degree in the 90s. My college degree may be older than you people. Anywho, getting older. But Rodney King wasn't that far in the past at that point in time. And so there was that whole question. Again, back in the 90s, I don't know, police departments were trying to figure out how to do better. I'm not quite sure what happened. But so one of my police instructors was talking about that. It was talking about the issue. Again, we talk about this with authority, that at some point you will always make the wrong call. You give people a position of authority, and at some point they will always make the improper call for some reason. Maybe racism, maybe tired, maybe they just make a bad call. And so he was talking about that with pulling people over, right? So people speed or whatever, you pull them over, what do you do next? And so one of the big problems is again, you have intrinsic bias, one way or the other, right? And so when you go up and you're dealing with a person that's driving, right? There's 3 options you can do. You give them a verbal warning, don't do it again. You give them a written warning, so it says they have been warned not to do this again. So like a lot of times, like written warnings are things like your headlight is out or something like that. Like they don't want to give you a ticket, but you do need to fix it. So it's like, look, we told you to fucking fix it. If you get pulled over again, we're gonna give you a fine, or fine, like doing a fine or whatever. And he talked about that. So you walk up. Again, you've had a bad day. Maybe you're arguing with your neighbor. You're arguing with your neighbor, and your neighbor is blah identity. Maybe it's a white guy. Maybe it's a black guy. Maybe it's a girl. You walk up and my God, this looks like their fucking clone. Right? You have spent all fucking day screaming at your neighbor. You literally are, have to call a lawyer because the idiocy with your neighbor is so bad. You walk up to this car and holy hell, this is their fucking clone. Not even them. It's their clone. How easy is it just to fucking give them the maximum fine and tell them to go fuck themselves? Thank you very much. Right? Because you have the discretion. One of the problems with the criminal justice system in the United States is how much discretion each level in the criminal justice system has. Anyways, so one of the things that he said is that basically he made the decision about what the punishment was going to be before he even got out of the car, before he knew what the person looked like, before you knew what the person were, before they opened their mouth one time. He looked at it again. So if he was in an area where there were a lot of speeding problems, right, lots and lots and lots of speeding, they got a ticket. If they were in an area that there wasn't much speeding problems, maybe a verbal word, or maybe there's not much speeding problems, but they're kind of like a good bit over 10 miles an hour over, might give them a written warning or something. And if it was under, maybe he just gives them a verbal warning, right? So he makes that decision before he even gets the fuck out the door. And then he gets out the door and he goes and he deals with the person. And generally, by and large, 99% of the time, unless there's something weird there, that's the punishment that is meted out. So again, to be clear, one of the screwed up things with our system is how much that is literally the level of discretion that they have. But think about that. That is creating a system. That is a mental system that this officer created in order to mitigate the biases that he knows that he has. And that's what I want you to be thinking about with your organizations and how you interact with things, is what systems can be created to mitigate the harm that you're going to do when you're in a position of authority. So there you go. Final story time. Final story time. Now you learn. Now you learn about the night Eli, the computer guy, almost killed a black guy with a chicken wing. You do not, ask a black, man that question, Fair enough. But I did. So let's get past all this. Oh, anywho. See y'all later.